What's up, folks? I want to go over the character I've been working on for about last week. A character that has been kind of in my mind since the beginning of the league when this jewel was revealed, and I have been very happy with the results. Done all the Ubers, done the conditionals, done Simulacrum Wave 30. Everything I've wanted to do, I've basically been able to do on this character, but on the caveat that it's not a fast mapper. I know a lot of people go into videos assuming the zoomiest of characters and things, but this guy is, as somebody put it, C- tier when it comes to clear speed. It's just a character that's very comfortable to map on because you just cannot basically die. I was running the large pack size kind of atlas tree for 70% increased pack size, running beyond, stuff like that, and maybe the occasional Mammoth with a bunch of corpses or a box that I opened and didn't move out of the way of, or getting hit by 27 meteors from the Exarch altars. Something like that would kill me, but for the most part I was playing with one hand, just shooting the shit with chat and enjoying what I was doing because I have 4,000 life regeneration, 1,500 life leech, and basically can't die. And that's the reason I'm not wearing a life flask. It doesn't really necessarily need one anymore at this point in the build, but there's many different varieties of the build and how to go about making it. So I'm going to go over all of those and also show you the Uber Exarch fight and the Simulacrum Wave 30s, and I'll have one more video, which is the one more video clip, which is the Uber Elder, which I went in blind, not knowing anything about the fight, and I face tanked everything because it has cold penetration and that can't kill me. So I basically ran around like a chicken with my head cut off, killed the fight, easy peasy. So probably gonna go farm up a bunch of those later tonight as well. Anyway, let's get into the build and how this works and what it all ends up looking like. So as I said, I am running one of the new jewels, which is called the Sublime Visions. Sublime Visions for Purity of Fire. This gives you aura effect for your Purity of Fire, which is important because we're going to go only getting that nice maximum resistance. As you can see, we only have 90 fire resist and nothing else. So we don't need anything else besides fire resist. And the reason we don't need anything besides fire resist is we have 30% of cold and lightning damage taken as fire because of the Sublime Visions. Now, mind you, this was 1x when I bought it. It seems some other people have made builds and now it's a lot more expensive, but it'll probably come down. Number 2 is the Tempered by War, which is cold and lightning damage taken as fire damage, so that's another 50% on top of the 30% we have. And then we're running the Dawnbreaker Shield. Mine is a 2018-20 because I was corrupting these and there wasn't a whole lot of really perfect ones on the market for cheap prices. I could have bought one for more expensive, but I was corrupting them myself, so I ended up just grabbing a 2018-20, getting max life corruption on it and calling that a day. And this gives us the rest of it. So we are now taking 100% of cold damage taken as fire, and we are taking 98% of lightning damage taken as fire. This means we only need fire resist, and that is the very important part about this build. Things that have cold penetration, lightning penetration, they don't do anything to us. This makes Uber Shaper very easy to do. This makes things like the Eater of Worlds easy to do. This makes any other fight besides Uber Exarch, which has fire penetration, very easy. But I can do Uber Exarch, not deathless yet, but that's just a practice thing. I'm still kind of rusty at that fight. I've only done it like 6 or 7 times, but I have succeeded in doing it twice back to back with no real worries, especially if I don't dick around too much. Now, how does the rest of the defenses work? Because if you just have fire resist, you're going to die to physical damage. Well, that's the second part of the build, is we end up stacking a lot of Phys to fire. So on the helmet, we've got a nice fractured Phys to fire. Of course, the implicit Phys to fire as well. The Dawnbreaker Shield is giving us Phys to fire as well. And then we got a Lethal Pride with some Phys to fire here, some Phys to fire there. And then we've got a Watcher's Eye with Purity of Fire, Phys to fire. The reason we do this kind of setup is because we can't run any other auras. Sublime Visions has the downside of it that aura skills from other than Purity of Fire are disabled. So that means no grace, no determination, nothing like that. So all we do is we get Phys to fires, we get ourselves a lot of fire resist, and we get ourselves a bunch of regen. The reason we go regen is because that lets us then run things like Righteous Fire, Blood Rage, whatever we want to, and still be incredibly defensive. Now, just in town in general, I have 2,600, I believe, 2,500 in town. And when I take a hit in a map, I go up to 3,900. So I have a net regen of about 35 to 3,800 with RF and Blood Rage going. Alongside of that, we also then have Leech because we are a Chieftain. So we also get the fire damage leached as life, and because we are low life, sans the fact that it doesn't look like we are right now because I have the gameplay option for hide life and mana reservations here, but we are low life. Don't worry about that. We are low life. So because of all those layers, we have overleach, we have a massive amount of regen, we have a very nice take everything against 90 fire resist, and we only take 22% of physical damage as physical damage. Everything else is taken as fire damage. So to make this incredibly tanky, especially when running the anomalous petrified blood, so that we prevent even more damage and make sure that that damage is taken as regen rather than as a full hit. And this has made me incredibly thick feeling. So how does this all come together then, and why did I go down this road? Mostly it was because I didn't want to run Melding, I didn't want to run Aegis Aura, I didn't want to run Spell Suppression, I didn't want to run Grace Determination, all of the things that was being run. I just wanted to try some different way of doing the content and seeing if it was possible to still do everything. Simulacrum, Wave 30, Ubers, all that stuff. And it very much was with this build. It's been really fun. I started off with a very different version of this build. I've basically respec'd and redone the gear over and over again, and the one I'm wearing right now is the more difficult version to do, but the other version I'll go over is a lot easier as well. So we are a Reap build. We go Anomalous Reap. Our Anomalous Reap is very good because it gives us a bit more crit, and we are stacking that in a Skin of the Lords. I run a 3 blue, 3 red Pain Attunement Skin of the Lords. There's a couple options. You could probably do 4 reds, you could probably do 4 blues as well, or you could go for the new chest that gives you Pain Attunement on rare, so you could get more HP if you wanted to go that route, if you were willing to go about the crafting process of making those. I believe it has the caster tag on it, so you should be able to. It does have it, so I think you could do cannot roll caster mods and stuff like that and modify that. I haven't tried to do one of those yet myself, so that's probably a possibility to do as well. And because we're an Anomalous Reap, and because we're having to kind of move around the tree for mostly regen and the defensive sides of things, getting ourselves some max resistances and stuff like that, we don't really have a whole lot of wiggle room when it comes to getting crit input normally, right? Normally you'd go stacking crit on the tree and get crit that way. So in turn we go for a Leadership's Price. Leadership's Price is very good for this build because all we care about is our fire resist. So +3 maximum fire resist. Any Leadership's Pride that gives you +3 fire resist will work for this build. You don't need anything special, you don't need anything fancy. The reason for that is that everything, all our other resists, we don't take damage in those. So just get a +3 max fire resist, Leadership's Price. And it's not that difficult to work around Leadership's Price in terms of getting it into a build. I know it looks daunting to have your 2 highest attributes have to be equal, but the reality is that it's not that difficult to do that. There's a lot of wiggle room, especially if you don't go the Circle of Anguish route, and I'll explain that in here a second here. But for the most part, that's one of the reasons we have the tree laid out the way that we do, using things like Brute Force for anywhere between the 16 to 24 intelligence. There's some wiggle room. Then we grab some with these nodes specifically. We go up here to make sure that this is, 20 intelligence. Grab this here. That makes it easy as well. If we needed more, if I needed 20 more, I could go through here instead of going down here and grabbing these 2 nodes. They'll become intelligence nodes. One of the reasons we travel up here, I ended up traveling up here, was that I needed some more intelligence, so I ended up traveling up to the top corner because I wasn't going down for the instant war cries. I don't really mind Enduring Cry having a slight cast on it, so I don't care. I just ended up using the alt quality one to make it really quick, and that was all I needed. The problem is that you kind of have to fight against this 10% strength that you're getting from Death's Fury, but with enough wiggle room and with enough understanding of where you can get stats on your gear, it's a whole lot easier. And like I said, if you're looking for the easier version, it's much easier to do with an Unset ring instead of the Circle of Anguishes. But let's start with the base gear, and then we'll go from there. We're using Anomalous Reap in power because it's very strong in a Skin of the Lords. You get +2 on top of it, so you get a very big boost to your Reap. I have a level 29 Reap. Awaken Fire Pen. You could also use Awaken added Phys to fire. That one, yeah, because that one also works. Then you have to get exposure elsewhere. I went Awaken Fire Pen as a result. Awaken Spell Cascade is one of the strongest things for Reap that you can kind of socket in, because it makes it so you can actually land 3 Reaps on top of each other. So right around where my cursor is, you're hitting with 3 instead of the normal 1 or 2. So Awaken Cascade is pretty much mandatory, pretty cheap though. Increased critical damage, because once again, we don't get a whole lot of crit damage on the tree, so that's one of the better links when you have a 13 to 15 brittle on things like Uber Exarch. This is pretty much best in slot, because you are 100% critting, you just need the crit damage on top. Awaken Spell Echo, I ended up dropping one of these myself, so I went it, but it does give a much more lockdown approach. You know, if you walk around and cast, you're locked down for a little bit. If you don't want to do it that way, you could do something like Unleash. You could do another red instead, do added physical and fire penetration. Your damage will go lower, but your lockdown will feel better, and you don't feel as kind of stuck in place when you're moving around casting stuff. So those are different options there. The Skin of the Lords is kind of the hard part about the build. They're not always available. They're not easy to find. And depending on the colorings, you might have to wiggle around the gear a little bit. But if you're interested in this kind of off-brand setup for how to do content, then it's sometimes fun to do it that way instead. We are running Herald of Purity, Flame Dash, Immortal Call, Arcane Surge in the helmet. The reason we're just running this kind of weird link here is because Herald of Purity is one of the auras we need to run. Or not an aura. It's not an aura, so we can run it. Let's put it that way. Herald of Purity, and then we're also running Anomalous Petrified Blood, Herald of Ash, and Purity of Fire. The limited pool that we have to choose from when it comes to non-auras kind of locks some of these in place. Things like Tempest Shield are not an aura, so we also run that as well. But there isn't much wiggle room for that you can put in, because you can't run Grace, Determination, Malevolence, you can't run Anger, Hatred, whatever you want to run. They're all auras, so you have to run the ones that you can run, and in this case, it's really good for us actually just to run Purity, Ash, Purity Fire, Petrified Blood, and then Tempest Shield. Originally, I was running Arctic Armor. I didn't like the dex requirement, and I didn't like the fact that it only really defended me when I was standing still. Defensively, it was really good, but I figured, screw it, let's just put in Tempest Shield for just a little bit of spell block. It's not much, it's 27, and realistically, 1/4 of the spells that hit me, I think it's good, but it's mostly just for Exarch, so I can survive the Annihilation attack a little bit better. Your mileage may vary. Maybe you have enough dex to run yourself Arctic Armor instead, and you can be really tanky when you're standing still. Don't know. It depends on your playstyle. I do run an Enlightened 4 on this build. I had one beforehand, but if you don't want to have an Enlightened 4, you can always spec into more Reservation. I'm able to drop some of it because I don't need it. But if you're willing to put in a couple levels, you don't need an Enlightened 4. You can just spec that Reservation node. The reason you have to have this Aura Effect node here instead of going this way is because this gives you exactly 90. If I unspec out of this node, I actually go to 89. I'm like right on the edge of being able to get everything in. As a result, you need this one here for 5 effect, this one here for 6 effect, and then this one needs to be, I believe, 35 or higher for the Sublime Visions, and you'll be able to get everything to trigger itself, and you'll go to 90 maximum fire resist. In terms of the curse, we're using Assassin's Mark. Assassin's Mark is just for crit and crit multi, and also power charge generation when fighting against bosses. I do get some power charges and frenzy charges from my wand. I got pretty lucky with getting one that's on an accumulator wand. In terms of my actual wand, I don't need the crit spells on there. I just need the multi, the all Phys, and an aspect of the aspect of the cat at this point. Realistically, I could make a better one. I could go for a +2 with crit multi and cast speed and then put the spell damage on there, and that would be way stronger for me, but I ended up just going this route because I was able to buy it for like 1x, and I said screw it, let's just buy that and use it instead. For cast on damage taken, we have a Divergent Purifying Flame level 1 just for that conk ground. That's going to give us a bunch of regen and also increase the damage enemies take by 5%. Why not? Why not use it in there? It's very good for the build. Like I said, Divergent Tempest Shield is on Anomalous Arrogance support, so that we reserve just barely above the 50% line and keeping ourselves always have that Overleach going, which is really good defensively. And then we're running Righteous Fire, because why not run Righteous Fire? You have insane amounts of regen, and it's good damage, and you have 90 fire resist. So Righteous Fire is always good for spellcasters who have the regen to give themselves that buff. I don't really use Divergent, the Reval Righteous Fire of it, almost ever, because when I do use it, I do chunk down pretty heavily. But if I really wanted to burst something down, I guess I could be using it. I almost completely forgot it existed on the build for the last 4 days until I just saw it right now. So realistically, don't worry about Val Righteous Fire. Just get a Divergent Righteous Fire and get the buff for that. We're using Increased Duration, Anomalous, Enduring Cry, Enhanced Support, and Anomalous Blood Rage is just the low-level Blood Rage so that we can get some Frenzy Charge generation once again on bosses, and an Enduring Cry just on normal cast with the Anomalous one makes it so that it's a little bit quicker to cast and it doesn't slow you down as long. This is just to get our Endurance charges, or if you're going the other version, to get your Brutal charges. There's 2 versions there. We'll go over that in a second. And I think that covers most of the linkage and the gearing in terms of, or the linkage in terms of the gear. Just for skills as to what you're doing, all you really have to do is just walk around and cast your right click, and Assassin's Cry on single target, and keep your Enduring Cries up every, whenever. Because we have the increased duration threshold, we basically have 20 seconds to do whatever. You don't have to really spam it. You don't have to use it all that often. And then if you need to do a lot of damage or you're about to take some damage, pop Immortal Call and start sloshing away, because you're going to get that giant DPS boost from being the Storm's Embrace, where you lose it. If you lose endurance charges in the last 8 seconds, you get 15% more damage. So it's just a nice way of giving yourself a top off after you've done, running around the Annihilation or whatever you're doing. Pop it, cool. You're going to get yourself a bunch of damage. And because you've Warcried recently, you're still gaining endurance charges in the background pretty consistently. So once you get the flow of it, it works really, really well. In terms of gear, my gear is started off as bases like this. This is basically what I started off with. Was a boot with regeneration fractured onto it. Here it was life regeneration rate, a tier 3. It was more cheap than this one was. I got this one afterwards. And here I started with a life regeneration rate fracture as well. But same thing applies. All I did for my boot and my gloves was to spam Essence of Misery on it until I got the regeneration on there. And then I crafted on life. Once I started to switch over to this, away from this setup into a different setup, that's when I went from the +2 socketed AoE. You don't need that in the beginning. You just need to get yourself some Chaos Resist, some life regen, a life regeneration rate, and max life, and you'll have yourself a wonderful time. That's all you realistically need. Same thing with your boots. Chaos Resist, life regeneration, that one could even be divine to be better. And then I did a suffixes cannot be changed, veiled orbit, got movement speed, crafted on life, and that was done with the boot. I would say that in total, the boot cost about 3x to get to this state, the full state that it's currently in with everything on there. I had the searing things already, so I was just spamming my own at that point. And the glove to get to this state cost me 8 exalts, but that's because I was specifically looking for that +2 socketed AoE gems, because I was shifting away from the Unset ring. And because I was shifting away from the Unset ring, I needed a +2 on my gloves to make everything work. If you're not looking for that, you can just get by with spamming some miseries, putting on life, and done. You don't need anything more fancy. You don't need to hit it with anything. That's all you really need to do, and it's very easy to make these. They'll cost you about an X per on the base because of the fracture, but after that, you don't need to worry about anything else. It's very easy. Same thing with a helmet. I bought a fractured helmet with fire damage on it, and I just spammed it with pristine fossils, if I remember correctly, just to try to get the life regeneration on there. And I got a 2 and a 3 and said, all right, that's good enough for me. I don't need anything more. I'm not going to go further. And then I had a life roll in there as well. So pristine spam the helmet with a fracture of physical damage as fire. You can make a better helmet if you wanted to go a physical damage as fire and recombo it with another physical damage as fire, but it doesn't necessarily have to be that way. I just bought a base fracture, spammed it with pristines, got something that looked decently okay, and went there. Then I put on the implicits for both the helmet, the gloves, and the boots for life regeneration action speed, for effective marks unnerving, and this is once again not exposure because I have awakened fire penetration in here, so I did not need to get exposure on my build. And then for this I went and ended up going for the highest tier of using the conflict orbs to boost myself up to the highest tier of Phys's fire on the helmet, because I really wanted to push the build as far as it could go. So I ended up getting Phys's fire on the helmet for 8%. The lower one is 7%. Realistically, if you're just starting out with a build and you don't have that much currency, there's no reason to go for the 8% in the beginning. Just go for a 6, go for a 7, go for a starting point. You're not going to really notice the difference between having 22% of your physical taken or 24% of your physical taken. It's minute. It's very, very small. So don't worry about that in the beginning. I went for it because it worked out very well for me. The shield, just buy a shield that has pretty good rolls. You want at least like a 18, 18, 20, something like that, or 20, 20, 18, or whatever you want to do in terms of the variability. The thing is, the closer to 2020 you get, the more defensive you're going to feel when it comes to your cold and lightning. So you definitely don't want those being in the 10s, because you'll be taking 10% of your damage against these low resistances versus taking it against, 98% or whatever have you. So that's very important. Now, let's talk about the two big items in the room and what might be changed for you and how you might go about doing stuff. So the reason I don't run a life flask is because I don't need one as a result of this belt. This is a belt made with recombobulations. I bought it for 3x. But you can make this by doing prefix, suffix, suffix, smashing them together and hoping you get it. I was working on making one because I figured it would cost about 3 to 4x to make one. And this one ended up being listed online, and I just bought it because whatever, it was close enough. I made one of these belts, but I got unlucky and got the removes burning effect of roll on the suffixes. I tried to annul it, and it didn't come off of there, so I had to restart, and it cost me about 2x to make that version. So about 3 to 4 or 5 if you get unlucky x for probably making this belt. It's life, and life recovery. That's it. That's all the belt needs to be. You don't need resistances. Besides, if you want chaos resist, even that chaos resist, technically, if I didn't have that chaos resist on there, I would actually put my aspect of the spider on there, or my aspect of the cat on there instead, because if I put that on there, then I could get a better wand, get more damage, and then I would be willing to give up 15 chaos resist because I'm running an Phys flask to get that onto a different piece and get myself a more powerful wand. For now, though, I'm going to leave it as it is. It's good enough for me. I'm not going to complain about it. If you don't want to go about making that belt and you just want a more DPS-centric version of this, you want to do a lot more damage, get yourself an Arn's Anguish. It turns all your endurance charges into brutal charges. In that case, you won't be running Immortal Call. You'll be switching over to Molten Shell and Molten Shell in general, but then you'll get 6 brutal charges, and brutal charges will give you a 3% chance per brutal charge to do triple damage, which is absolutely insane for the build's DPS. You have 6 of them. You're going to be absolutely shredding. Actually, you have 7 of them with this thing, don't you? Yeah, you do. You have 7 brutal charges with this, if I'm not mistaken. Brutal charges will pile up, and because you have a 21% chance to do... Is it? Come on. There we go. You have a 21% chance to do triple damage. Your damage will be through the roof. But in my case, I went with the life version because I didn't need the DPS anymore. I was shredding through Awakener, Uber Sirius. I was shredding through Uber Exarch and all the bosses, so I didn't really care about it. I don't need the damage. I wanted just to survive and be able to walk around with one hand, clicking mobs and having them die. So, the cheaper version, Arn's Anguish. The more expensive version, the one that's going to make you super, super tanky, is a leather belt instead. Choose which one you want to do. If you're going to run Arn's Anguish, you probably don't run all your flask as non-life flask, and you'll probably end up popping in something like instant recovery on low life, or this style where half and half is applied. Whatever you want to do. More recovery on low life, just to give yourself a little bit more wiggle room. I can't die at this point to most things in the game. Sure, I can die if I do something really stupid, but I don't need a life flask because of the belt. But if you're running Arns, just run a life flask instead of a Phys flask, and you'll probably have a good time. You'll have to avoid the toxic balls that spawn a little bit more effectively, but that's not a problem. Now, the other thing that I'm going to recommend is, instead of going the Anguish route, go the Unset Mark of the Shaper route in the beginning. Just get yourself a Mark of the Shaper with a pretty decent roll. This one was a 80. I bought it for, I don't know, 70C or so. You could get a lower one, and then Catalyst for caster, and then get yourself an Unset ring for +2 with some int and dex and cast speed and life, or whatever you can get on it, but get a +2 with the int roll. The higher the int roll, the more easy you have flexibility wise, and then you can catalyst this depending on how many attributes you need to fix your strength and int to be equal. So this is the much easier version of it. For me, since I went to Circles of Anguish, I had to get Intelligence Circles of Anguish. So this one's got Intelligence, percent Intelligence, cast speed, and this one's got Intelligence, Phys fire. This one's they both give strength, and that's kind of the problem, is that the rings will give you 42 strength. Well, mine are rolled low on the divines for the strength, which is good. They'll give you strength, so it's much harder to balance around. So in the beginning, I would not go this route unless you have a bunch of money and you can kind of get good Circles of Anguish that gives you int. Just go a Unset ring, or go Unset ring and then go for a ring that has cast speed, crit multi, life, all that stuff on it. There's a lot of options for what you could do, but the flexibility of having the intelligence on your ring is so much easier to get leadership's price capped in the beginning, because you don't have to worry about things as much. That's why I have to have this node here. I have to path through what I do. I have to pick up this node here. Otherwise, I could path through here instead, get 20 here, drop these, lose a bit of regen, and then drop this node and maybe put points elsewhere. It's just a little bit of a weird balancing game. I had to go through here, so I ended up picking up this because I was going for power charges to get more crit, because I was going up here for the charge duration. And it's a finicky system in the beginning, but once you understand it, there's a lot of ways to work around it. And the easiest way is to use an unset ring with a catalyst on it. So that's the way I would recommend to do in the beginning. Other than that, when it comes to your flask, just run the gain charges when you get hit, because you're going to get hit a lot, but hey, the hits don't do any damage, so screw it. Just have your flask charges all the time running. You want a ruby flask with regen, because that's going to be insane for you. You take less fire damage. Less fire damage taken means that you're taking less fire, you're taking less cold, you're taking less lightning, you're taking less fizz, because everything is taken as fire damage. This is huge for you. If you're a mage blood user, this is even bigger for you. There's a version of this build with mage blood that another dude is doing named Epsy, who is running a CI Phys's chaos damage taken variant of this build, and he's running mage blood with it because that's where you get resistances from, and it's probably going to be absolutely nasty because it's going to be just a way stronger version of this version, I would assume. So that's another way you can go about it. Onslaught with cast speed, just because why not? Mine's only on rare or unique because I don't need it going off all the time. Diamond with crit, because I think I don't even need this one anymore. I actually don't know. I haven't looked at the numbers without leadership's price, because I do brittle for 13, so I don't think I might need this anymore. Brittle 13 is a lot of crit, so we probably don't need this anymore. Reduced effect for curses. Quicksilver just lets me run around and not really worry about curses. I've got the same thing on my Amethyst flask because I've been too lazy to reroll that. I should probably get something else on there, maybe armor, just because that 22% of physical damage we do take goes against our armor. So our armor actually goes a much longer distance because it's a much smaller hit. So we could get another armor roll on there, and then we're really thick. So that's probably what I would end up doing in the long run. In terms of like the gearing progression, you definitely don't need to start with everything like Awaken Spell Echo, Empower level 3s, all that stuff. In the beginning of the build, I started with the leveling of just a +1 tabula that I bought for, I don't know, 20C, 2 +1 wands, and an Empower 2. It has now become an Empower 3. Just chuck them in there with a flame wall, level all the way to 38, 45, whatever you want to do. Use that fire scaling from that to give yourself a quick boost of leveling, and then switch to Reap whenever you feel comfortable with the amount of life regeneration you have. That's one of the reasons that I kind of path originally through down here, went over here, grabbed a bit of fire multi, and then just went life cost, life, and then just went into Reap once I had the regen, because in the beginning, one of the things you'll notice is you don't really have the regen to supplement for casting Reap effectively. You'll kind of start getting hurt a lot, so it's much better to wait until you have Flames Advance, wait until you have the regens, wait until your avatar fired up, and have that regen going, and then you'll be able to go into Reap with Cascade, with all the good stuff, and then it's going to feel a whole lot better. Till then, it was just Flame Wall. I didn't do anything special, did anything fancy. Choose your leveling skill of choice. Mine's always Flame Wall when it comes to Chieftains, because Chieftains are really bad at leveling spellcasters. So I ended up going Chieftain for that, and it worked out really well for me. In terms of the rest of the stuff that I have a Unnatural Instincts in here. That's pretty much a best spot for it for this build. You get some regen, you get some area effect, you get some skill duration for things like Immortal Call and stuff, you get some cast speed from over here, physical percentage, it is a Phys based spell, and then a little bit of curse effect and stuff if you were to run curses and things of that nature. Not so much, but realistically this is the last thing you have to put in the build. It's going to give you a bit of strength and int, so it's a little bit annoying to balance out fully if you get it later into the build, but in the beginning you don't need it. I just got it because I wanted it and it was going to do good stuff for me. I had it at the time, so I threw it in there, but it's definitely the last piece of the puzzle you need to get. The first piece of the puzzle is going to be the Sublime Jewel if you are going to go for it. This is the one that's kind of weird right now because it was an X when I got it, And then I think some people else have made builds with it. I don't know. I think somebody said Rue was making a build with it. So maybe this has come up in price quite a lot now. I think it was like 6x yesterday. But it could fluctuate quite heavily. Once people move on to the next build, this will probably go down. It's not that big of an issue. In terms of Watcher's Eye, just get a Purity of Fire one with Phys as fire damage taken. You don't need anything else. That's the only thing you could really do. And that gives you another 10% physical mitigation from there. I'm using a brute force with 18. That is the specific number that I needed. The other ones, you could grab whatever number you need to match your intelligence to your strength. So be wiggle room there. And I got a Corrupting Blood one for 70C, so I figured, screw it, I'm just going to buy that as well. The Lethal Pride is a little annoying to spam because you need Phys as fire, but in my setup, you do have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 that you can kind of choose from if you put it here. And then just make sure that you have a Lethal Pride of Rikatia, the Rakiato there, and that's the one that gives you Tempered by War. You do need that because that's, you know, the conversion that you're going to need. So try to find one that has as many Phys fires as you want. At least one. If you can get 2, sweet. If you can get 3, that'll be insane. But that's the only thing this is giving me is just Phys fire, and melee crit multi doesn't do anything for me. Fire resist I have way too much of, and intimidate doesn't do anything for me either. So sadly for me, this is kind of a brick other than the 2, which is that's all I needed for with the name. So screw it, good enough for me, right? Try to avoid percent strength on these because that's going to make it way more difficult. Like I said, if you don't want to run Enlightened 4, just grab the Mountain Reservation here. Maybe have to level a little bit more. Maybe instead of pathing down through here, path through here. Drop this node here and grab this and you'll be fine at 96. That'll work out just well for you. And then finally, I'm using an Intuitive Leap just to grab this out. The 2 Herald nodes from up here, that gives me the ability to run an Aspect. Aspect of the Cat, Aspect of the Spider, both are good. I'm running Cat. In hindsight, maybe Spider would have been better because I am crit capped, but I like the cast speed when it goes to Cat Agility, so screw it, good enough for me. And then we just grab the power charge from there. Of course, we could get more spell damage from there, but I don't know. I haven't really worried about it. The big thing over here is the charge duration. Because we are using this weird wand that gives us the gain frenzy power charges every 6 seconds, one of them. And we are using things like Enduring Cry, we're using Blood Rage, and then power charge on hit from Assassin's Mark. Getting the increased duration is very nice because it gives you that buffer space when you don't get a charge. Or you're not getting a frenzy charge or a power charge. This will give you enough wiggle room to pull out the rest of the charges and actually be able to still utilize the charges all the way through the fight. So that's a very good one. You will drop them on some fights if the phases are long enough. If you kill the Minotaur in the middle of the Uber Exorc fight, well, you're probably going to drop them before the balls stop hitting you in the face. So that's kind of a problem with it. But overall, I would say that the build is very, very fun. It is very, very much enjoyable, and it has been super tanky. It has been a blast to play, and the version I started with the Arns and the Shapers and the Unsets was a whole lot easier to get into, a whole lot cheaper to get into than this version is with the Circle of Anguishes, with all the craziness that's here. But because I was so in love with the build, I kind of just kept building onto it, kept tweaking it, kept making it better, and this is where I ended up with it at its final stage. This is pretty much done as far as I am concerned. I don't need to push the build any further. I'm just going to do all the challenges on the conditional challenges, do all the Uber fights again because I want to get them cleaner. I want to get them down to deathless and work on getting that Lord set done. So anyway, hopefully that answered all the questions. I know that was a long video with a lot of rambling, but the build has a lot of weird layers to it, and I do want to try to cover all of them. The last thing is you can get a Dawnbreaker with Corruption of Phys fire on it so that you can take even less. So you could go all the way down to 15% Phys taken as fire on this version. If you want to do 100%, you could do that with a chest piece, but I'm not going to go that far because I'm just going to use the Pain Attunement chest piece. It's a whole lot easier for me. Anyway, that's everything I wanted to discuss. This video is already 30 minutes long, so we're just going to go ahead and roll right into the Uber Searing Exarch, the Uber Elder, there's too many Ubers nowadays, and then the Simulacrum Waves 26 to 30. I do die a couple times here and there to things like chaos damage. That's why I switched over to the Amphitheus Flask in the Simulacrums, and I do die to the Exarch because it still has fire penetration and still does hurt. And I'm still not very good at that fight. So, but Uber Elder, I didn't die at all. I just ran around blind. I didn't know what I was doing, and still succeeded. It was pretty dang good. Would recommend, if you have any questions, I'm going to leave both the pubs down below. One for the Unset version, and one for the Circle of Anguish version that I'm running right now. And if you have any questions, leave them in the comments. Ask on Twitch, Twitter. I don't care. Ask away. I'm more than happy to answer any questions. That's it. You guys enjoy the little clips. See you. Where'd he go?
I cannot do this yet.
Oh, they're both in the center. Ow. Okay, well, this is a crazy ass fight. Oh, that's what he does? He goes into that phase constantly? Okay. How much iframeage do they have? Fuck hell. I'm getting beamed while being in the thing. Nice. That's a bit of a dick move, but alright. Ow. Ow. Wait, you're not moving my HP. Ow. Wait, do the propagators drop ground when you kill them in this mode? Interesting. Sir, can you not beam me constantly? La da 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 da. No spell suppression, by the way. Ooh, that was a Shaper Slam. That hurt. No, wait. No, it didn't. I lived. No, I'm dying slowly. I'm getting tentacled. No, Oni-chan, no. I don't even know what's going on in this fight. I'm immortal, so I guess I don't really care, but yeah, this is a bit of a chaotic fight. I'm not gonna lie. I'm getting tentacled, I'm liking it. Basically. Cool! Well, that was easy. Sweet, I got a park map! Fuck yeah. Alright, I had no idea what was going on the entire fight, but I can't die, so fuck it. Yeah, it's the penetration is missing, so sweet. That was 28. What was on that wave? Crit, haste, Phys' extra fire, reduce damage from crits, scorch, maim. Oh, I was taking Phys' extra chaos. That's, yeah, fucking hell. Stupid Phys' extra chaos, man. That's just gonna get me killed. It's the one thing I have to, like, really actually be afraid of.
My mana is gone.
Also, can something just stop putting vulnerability on me every time it spawns? That'd be great. Ow, I just took an Omni to the face. Mind getting out of the corner there, mate? No? Alright. Fair enough. You put Omni on your neck, not your face. Well, that's where I took it. That's where I took it, and I don't have another way to do it. Oops. Don't have damage. Way more lethal, yeah. That was another Phys extra chaos? Dude, stop rolling Phys extra chaos and crit on everything. That's gonna get me killed. I got petrified again. That's so annoying. The one thing that like has stopped me from moving is just a pain.
I cannot do this yet.
I can't move out of the spot. What the fuck? What is going on? Man, I cannot move. Yeah, I think I need to get that one reservation node because my mana is right now just locking me into places that I don't want to be. Because I just don't have the mana to get out of a spot. Ah, nope. I couldn't move again. I think it's completely doable. I'm just getting, like, unable to move constantly. And that's really bad for me. Yeah, there's petrified again and again. Oh my god, this dude. Is there some way to stop petrification? That's really annoying. And this guy's still spamming me about this thing. I will tell you when it's over. Jogger comes roots. Yeah, so the answer is no, there isn't. Oh, damn, Kosis. Okay. I don't know if I want to slugfest with this Kosis. How much reduction is on this guy? Why are you thicker than a fucking pinnacle boss? What the hell are you made of? Holy cow! It's a really thick Kosis. Yeah, it was a 3.6 brittle. It's like really low. I guess the layer of delirium at this point is like mega thick, which is hurting. Come on. There we go. Darker half. Interesting. That is not what I clicked. Okay, well fuck it, we're going. Glad I picked up the expensive thing first.
I cannot do this yet.
Oh, what the fuck?
My mana is gone.
No, that wave has something different on it. Because I just did a 13 brittle and this is the wave afterwards. So whatever that wave had a second ago was affecting it, so I couldn't get brittle on it. I ripped through a wave 30. I don't know what was on the wave before this one, but it was way bigger than this wave was. I wasn't paying attention to the mods. I was gonna read it when I clicked on it. But yeah, that's wave dirty down. It must have been reduced crit or something. Power charges. Come on, wand. Power charges, please. There we go.
Your absurd defiance ends here, hatchling.
The appointed time is here. Victory will be ours.
My mana is gone. Annihilation.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I shall extinguish them all.
You do not have the strength, hatchling.
That may be, but I am not alone.
Pathetic.
Oh shit, I got hit by 2 balls at once. Damn it, double the ball in the face. Round 12, 12.9, 15. Okay, cool. So we're good. Ooh, it doesn't even bother me anymore. Oh, that is close enough. Okay. So there is, I was like right on the edge last time I ate that in the face. Okay.
Annihilation. Disintegration. Cleansing. The fires of 1,000 suns.
I shall extinguish them all.
Oh god! There was no way out of there. Okay, cool. I'm trying to get better at doing it without without using flame dash so much, but nah. Not gonna work out.
Incineration. Disintegration. Cleansing. Annihilation.
Oh my god, I can eat it with Immortal Call. I totally can eat it.
Annihilation. The fires of 1,000 suns.
With Immortal Call, I totally can eat the fucking thing.
Extinguish them all.
Ah, I couldn't get away from it. Okay. A little bit too much limit testing, so I'll hopefully be able to still do this, but... Yeah, okay, so Annihilation is eatable.
Incineration. Annihilation. Disintegration. Cleansing. Annihilation. My mana is gone. Disintegration.
Nice. Yep, so I can eat Annihilation with Immortal Call in this setup.
I cannot do this yet.
Nice. Oh, that's so dumb. I can't believe that works. Bit too much limit testing there, but... Alright.